Okay, well, what happened on the Republican side was Ted Cruz sort of made Indiana his last stand. So he was, if you don't want Donald Trump to get the nomination, you got to support me in Indiana. And he put a lot of money into it. He practically lived in Indiana for a week or two, and really pushed hard. Donald Trump, when the election happened and the ballots were counted, basically crushed Ted Cruz in Indiana. And at this point, it is almost mathematically impossible. In fact, it is mathematically impossible for Ted Cruz to catch Donald Trump in either delegates or popular votes. And it is mathematically likely that Trump will get enough delegates to win the nomination on the first ballot at the Republican convention. So as a result of that, Ted Cruz, having made that his last stand, basically threw in the towel last night and said, okay, I'm out. It's Trump's. And so now what's happening in the Republican Party is the next challenge for Donald Trump will be to pull the Republican Party behind him, because obviously there were 17 people who ran in this race. 16 of them didn't get there. They all have their supporters. There are a lot of people in the Republican Party who are upset about the idea of Donald Trump being their nominee. They're going to have to make a decision. Well, do we support this guy? Do we sit on our hands? Or do we support the Democrat? And my sense, the way politics tend to happen in America, is the closer you get to election, the more people tend to fall in line with their party favorite or their predisposition in terms of party. But that's the next step there. On the Democratic side, Bernie Sanders basically said, I ain't dead yet. The press was sort of saying, okay, this one's over. If Hillary wins Indiana, it'll be the same kind of dynamic as Trump beating Cruz, but Sanders won Indiana. It wasn't a huge surprise because the demographics of Indiana are quite similar to the demographics of a number of states that Bernie Sanders has won. And as I was saying earlier, it doesn't mean that he's going to necessarily be able to catch up with Hillary in terms of pledged delegates. So the likelihood, virtual certainty, is that she will win the Democratic nomination at their convention. But what it means is that he is still around, still campaigning. He will go on. He probably, he may do well in some of the primaries that are still coming up, but he'll be campaigning hard all the way through California and New Jersey, and will take his campaign to the convention. So I think you have a little bit of a different dynamic in both parties, where the Republican Party right now is starting the process of trying to build a rally around their nominee dynamic, whereas the Democratic Party still has a little bit of a ways to go. Well, I think voters are frustrated. We've seen this in both parties, with the Sanders phenomenon coming from the left, and obviously the Trump phenomenon coming from the right. And there's a little bit of anger that's expressed, maybe different reasons for the anger depending upon your ideological perspective. Some on the right supporting Trump, angry about 8 years of the Obama presidency, angry about immigration, some angry about the fact that there's been a kind of a stagnation of middle-class income growth. And on the left, it's anger at Wall Street, frustration at the financial meltdown in 2008, 2009, a sense that the big corporate institutions that perhaps caused that meltdown have done well, and yet working men and women have not seen their incomes jump that way. Even though they may have new jobs, they aren't quite as good as the old jobs. So I think that dynamic has created an environment in the presidential campaign where candidates who are really just focusing on that anger and that frustration are doing quite well, and that's what we've seen.